Hi. So, I just rechecked because I've kind of been rechecking a lot. But Lightbound has a new chapter. It has chapter 21 out. And so I thought to myself, I should do a blind reaction of this. So that's what I'm going to do. And normally I get really annoyed by my stutter, but I really don't have a choice because it's a blind reaction. So we're going to film this in one take. Okay, let's do this, gang. Let's do this. Okay, so last we left off, Harvey had gone drinking for the first time in 10 years. Oh my gosh, it was crazy, and he got drunk, and then Jill was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so pissed at him." So here we go. Harvey woke up to a pounding headache and a sense of nausea that had him stumbling out of bed into the bathroom. Well, no crap, you got drunk, dude. You're hungover. This is the consequences of your own actions. He slumped against the bathtub when it passed, hair hanging in his face, clothes from yesterday crumpled, and the cold of the floor sinking into the soles of his feet. Gosh, he muttered, the shame of the previous night sinking into his bones. Oh, poor baby. Probably shouldn't have gone drinking, but, you live and you learn. It was too late to hope that it had been a dream rather than a string of terrible decisions. He felt it too much for it to be anything other than reality. Why had he done that? He shouldn't even ask. He knew the answer. It was because he panicked and he was hurting and he wanted not to feel it anymore. Reasons that were uncomfortably close to where he'd been the first time he had this problem. Wait, no. The first time this had become a problem. They were ingrained in him by now after years of therapy and that awful period of detox and recovery. Oh, Harvey's in therapy? I didn't know that. That's awesome. I guess in the Lightbound Wumptober fix, it did mention that he was getting his meds, but I didn't know he was in active therapy. That's great for you. Good job, Harvey. You're looking in the wrong places for help. You need to learn to live your life after everything. No, he was better now. He could handle life. He knew himself. Well, I don't know about that, buddy. Do you? Yeah, do you, Harvey? Do you? Gosh. He gritted his teeth and took a shaky breath, bracing his good hand against the edge of the bathtub and pushing himself up off the floor. A shiver ran through him, whether it was the thermostat not quite accommodating the temperature dropping outside, his own revulsion with himself, or a post-nausea chill. He couldn't tell. If he had to wager a guess, he'd say the truth was somewhere closer to the center of the three. The thought of burying himself in blankets and staying there until he rotted sounded more and more appealing with every passing moment. A text from Jill had come in at around 6 that morning. On my way home. Call or text by noon or I'm coming to get you. Oh, Harvey, you're in trouble now, dude. Jill is gonna beat you, dude. He looked at the time. 10. At least he knew that he had time before she assumed the worst and started pounding on the door. Bruh, you know she would do that, though. Jill is so bad, I love her. He rattled off the text immediately because that was what responsible friends did. He would have had to pay her back for the ride when she came over. I'm awake. Feel like crap. Give me an hour or two to get myself together. Yeah, well, you did just drink for five drinks. I also heard from somewhere that if you stop drinking for a while, then the effects of drinking for the first time is really rough. But Google me on that one, okay? I don't really know anything. Don't take that as fact. But anyway, an hour or two didn't seem like much time in the face of reckoning with breaking his sobriety for the first time in a decade, but it was all he was willing to give himself. Otherwise, there would be too much time to sit alone with it. He was a disaster, sure, but he at least knew himself well enough to know that too much time alone with his thoughts wasn't what he needed right now. Oh, I hope he can get back to it. I know it must suck for you've done all this work, a whole decade worth of work, and it just breaks. I mean, he was so strong for all this time. He went to see Cotton and he didn't drink then, but I feel like it's all of it, It's not just the fact that the papers were rejected. It's also the fact that he's had to see Cotton. He's going through so much. He went to jail for a little bit. I feel like all of that is adding together and adding to him drinking for the first time. And while that's definitely a bad thing to do, it's kind of hard not to understand what he's doing, Breakfast seemed about as appealing as eating out of the garbage. He shoved a slice of bread into the toaster, and that was all he was willing to suffer through. The envelopes still stared up at him from exactly where he'd left them on the table the evening before. He exhaled heavily through his nose, fingers wandering over to the unopened one. He'd held it in front of him, the light streaming through the window, and wondered if it was worth it to open his court summons right now. Probably not, he decided, setting the envelope back on the table just as the toast popped up. Is it just me? My toaster is, never good enough. No matter what setting I put it on, it's either underdone or overdone. There's no in between between it's basically just bread, but and it's a piece of charcoal. I don't even understand. Maybe Harvey has the magic toaster, or maybe my toaster just sucks. He grabbed it from the toaster. Hey, we were just talking about you, toaster. And ate it dry while leaning against the counter. Dry toast is the best, dude. I'm gonna get so much flack for this. Dry toast is better than toast with butter on it. It just is. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Dry toast just tastes better. Because when you put butter on a toast, then it gets soggy. But whenever you, like, eat it dry, it's just, like, you get all the flavor, and it's also crunchy. Okay? Look, okay. Whatever. As much as the thought of food had been repulsive to him moments ago, now it seemed welcomely and ushered away. Now it seemed welcome and ushered away the lingering remnants of nausea. Eventually, he would have to open that envelope. Tonight, probably. After he picked his car up from the bar. What bar was that again? He put a hand to his forehead as he racked his brain for the name of the place. It had been some kind of male name, right? Ronnie's, Rodney's. No, Ricky's. That was it. Come to think of it, he didn't even know where it was exactly. He'd been going wherever the road took him. Yeah, that's very smart, buddy. Let's just hope that you don't, like, wind up in the middle of nowhere with no gas. Well, I guess he probably filled up on gas. Anyway, and then he'd been drunk in the back of an Uber, not exactly making notes of the direction. He'd have to look it up, or text Jill and let her know that he remembered where he left it. Speaking of Jill, she was not going to be happy when she saw him, and he completely deserved it. He braced himself for it, deserved or not, it was not going to be pleasant. He anticipated a long talk about talking to his therapist and texting her, calling her frequently to check in. She'd be right, of course. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just what a good friend does. I'm glad that Harvey knows it, but yeah, Jill is such a good friend. Like, sometimes you need your friend to just be like, hey, you stupid dummy, don't do this again, okay? Like, you know, because they love you. That's real tough love, in my opinion. If anything, this was all proof he needed. If anything, this was all the proof he needed that he wasn't meant to take care of that kid. He was too in his own emotions, too unstable, making incredibly irresponsible and avoidable mistakes, and then relapsing because he couldn't handle them. Okay, Harvey, let's not say that, okay? Like, as I said before, like, he is going through so much with Cotton, with everyone. I mean, he had to see Cotton for the first time in 10 years. Like, there's no wonder that he started drinking. I mean, I don't really think this is, like, the evidence that he doesn't deserve Harper. I mean, he loves her so much, and, you know, it's not like he freaking, like, hit somebody. Wait, did he hit that couple? I can't remember. I know he yelled at them, though. But, yeah, it's not like he went crazy or anything. It's just, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and relapse happens, and he's gonna be able to get over it. I hope so, at least. Well, not get over it like that, but, you know, like, get better. Anyway, here we go. No, as much as it made him ache with shame and disappointment, John was the better of them. No, he's not! John is totally a murderer! He was strong. He knew when to put his foot down, even if it was to prevent Harvey from visiting her for her own mental well-being. You always just think about you. John is a bad person! I can't prove it yet, I just know it! Okay? I just know it! Yeah, he supposed he did. What had all this actually been about? Why had he stepped foot in that house and crossed that line in the first place? It was so easy to say he wanted results that the police weren't getting due to negligence, that he was trying to be proactive in a situation full of inaction, and in doing that he'd made the situation infinitely worse because he was riding on emotions and not thinking about the consequences. That last part was probably true. But had it ever been for her, or was he just trying to make himself feel like there was some kind of justice in the world? How could he be trusted to take care of a child if he couldn't even figure out how much of this was his own selfish impulses? All you do is project. Okay, but him, like, thinking about this kind of proves that he is good for Harper, you know? Like, he is thinking about his mistakes, and he's thinking about, oh, wait, was I doing this for me? Was I doing this for her? And just, like, him coming to that conclusion kind of shows that he is a good fit, because he's realizing, okay, I've made some mistakes here, right? Like, it's not just the police force, it's not just this, it's not just that. I've made mistakes because of my problems, right? So I feel like that kind of shows that he is pretty good for Harper. He finished the last of his toast and texted Jill. I'll add the even better toast than if he had buttered it, the extraordinarily good toast. He wouldn't call himself cleaned up or put together, but he had a feeling that this was the best it was going to get today. Maybe that was a good thing. If she saw him halfway assembled and looking dazed, maybe she'd actually be able to read something about what to tell him, as harsh as those words might be. Do, 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 do. It's the intermission line song. Do, 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 do. It's the intermission line song. I love intermission lines. I don't even know why I'm going on this tangent, but, like, they're, like, the best thing ever. Whenever you don't want to end a chapter, but you want to add an intermission line, this is the best thing. They're so underrated, dude. It's, like, they're the best thing. What am I talking about? Okay, anyway, here we go. We're back. They pulled up in front of Ricky's at around noon in the daylight, and at least somewhat thinking logically, it seemed much less appealing than it had the other night. The other night, is this the same day? Is this yesterday? Well, not yesterday our time, but is this taking place like 2 days before? Well, I guess I should keep reading to find out. It wasn't that the building looked run down or that they were in a part of town that made him particularly uncomfortable. It stood as a monument to his failure, the place where he'd given up a decade of progress on a whim after being denied something that he never should have had. Oh, Harvey. Look, in the Lightober Wumptober Lightbound one-shots, at least we know that Harvey gets her. We know that Harvey has a little teenager to cuddle with and adore and love in a normal way. That kind of made it sound weird. I'm not trying to make it weird here, okay? The thought of stepping out of the car seemed akin to entering some no-man's land besieged by gunfire and standing there waiting to be gunned down. Jill sat behind the wheel beside him, and he was more thankful than ever to have her here, even though she hadn't cracked a smile since she'd picked him up and was clearly less than happy, both with him and with the situation. At least with her here, someone was holding the leash Wait, I think I might have misread that. Oh yeah, at least with her there, someone was holding the leash if, in some twist of fate, the disgust faded and he abandoned reason in favor of intoxication again. He wouldn't, but the voice in the back of his mind reminded him that he'd already done it once, and there was nothing to stop it from happening again, no matter how much he told himself that it wasn't possible. "Can you drive back?" she asked, giving him a sideways glance. The gesture punched him in the gut as he wondered if it was because she couldn't stand to look at him straight. Okay, I don't think she's that mad. I mean, I think she's mad. I just don't think she's that mad, you know? I think she's the "you're stupid" mad, you know? Like the "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed" mad. The "I just don't understand, I guess" mad. You know what I'm talking about? I don't think she's the "I can't look at you" mad, in my opinion. "I guess I'd better be able to," he replied, tone flat and tired. "We're here now." Well, thank you, Sherlock. I wasn't aware. Could he drive back? That was more of a question than he'd have liked to admit. Between his shaking hand and the tide of anxious, tense heat ebbing and flowing around his heart, he had to. Now was the time to get a grip, if for no other reasons than necessity, and to prove to himself that he could claw back control over something in his life. He turned to her, head cloudy, and the world seemed to move too fast as he did so. "What do I do?" he asked. The question felt like an inevitability, something that he'd been holding inside him for far too long and had been avoiding by going through the motions of pretending to have some idea of what he was doing. It had all made it so much easier to ignore that recently he'd eat, slept, and breathed it. Wait, did I read that right? It had all made it so much easier to ignore that recently he'd eat, slept, and breathed it. I might just be stupid. Yeah, that's probably it. When he looked at himself in the mirror, that was what he saw looking back at him. It was easier when he could do those grand, self-destructive gestures like talking to Cotton or breaking into the crime scene, but easier didn't mean better. In fact, it rarely did. Yeah, I still stand by the fact that talking to Carton, he went to talk to Carton. I still stand by the fact that talking to Cotton, as in the Hank Hill character, no, I'm kidding. He went to talk to Cotton. I think that's the big reason that he started drinking again, or at least I think that's like the beginning pillar, because that's probably the hardest thing he's done in the whole series. At least I would assume so. And in 21 chapters, I don't think he's done anything harder than going to talk to Cotton. And I just realized that's him going to talk to his abuser, not just his abuser, his torturer, his kidnapper, this evil, sadistic, awful monster of a man. I don't even want to call him a monster. This demon of a man, just for Harper. I feel like that proves just how much he should have her, you know? Because he's responsible in a way. I mean, not with his own health, but I know he would be responsible with hers. And just the fact that he was willing to do that of all things, wow. That just shows how much he loves her. Okay, we're back to it. Jill turned to him fully, eyes wandering over him like she was checking to make sure every part of him was still intact. "First you get your car," she said, "and then we talk about everything else after." If only it was that easy. As much as he knew she was making sense, he still wanted to know beyond that where to go in the next hour, day, week. It was the same feeling he'd carried with him every day during that long, drunken period in his life. Now, free from that hell, rid of the man who had kept him there. Freedom was too much. He'd wanted so badly for someone to tell him what he was going to do or where he was going to go. It was just another chain he was bound by, directionless, and waiting for someone to take him by a leash and give it a good, sharp tug to remind him of what he was supposed to be doing. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but there's, like, a lot of leash maneuvers, and, like, when you think about a leash, you think about a dog. Well, for some reason, I'm thinking of a hyena on a leash. Anyway, you think about a dog, and in the Lightbound Wumptober shots, I'm mentioning them a lot because I really liked those. There's this one chapter where Cotton, this is so gross to say, Cotton made Harvey lick his boots like a dog, and he was like, "Good job, puppy," or something like that. Or I think it was like, "If you do well, puppy, then I'll let you like have rest today." So I feel like the leash thing and that might have some correlation. I just can't think of it right now. I don't know if I can, he replied. He heard her draw in a deep breath. The less charitable part of him tried to convince him that she was sick of his BS, and the sound with a sigh of exasperation. The part of him that understood nuance heard the hesitation at the long stretch of silence that followed it, like she was thinking about what exactly she was supposed to say to that. You can't stay in here forever, Harv, she said. I know, he replied. He opened his mouth like he was going to add something to that statement. I know. I'll walk with you, she said. Follow you back to your apartment, then, well, crap. Then I guess you're staying with me for a bit. Oh my gosh, she's such a good friend! Jill is friendship goals, guys. Oh my gosh. I love her. She is so sweet. Harvey drew in a sharp breath through his nose. He swallowed against his aching throat. Crap, he wasn't going to cry. Not again, not here when he already had so little pride left in him. He'd sold most of it for a bottle of cheap whiskey last night. Cheap whiskey, too. Ouch, dude. You gotta add that one last little hit against yourself. And the bar, too, in a way. I don't want to be in your way, he said, though he had to admit the words fell from his lips out of some sense of shame and an obligation to be considerate. He didn't want to be in her way, but he did want to stay with her. He knew by now that he couldn't push past... Oh my gosh! This is why I don't film things on the first draft. Okay, here we go. He knew by now that he couldn't push back in any way that would actually make her change her mind about it. Still, he wished that he felt like he was allowed to accept. These past days, he'd been nothing but a pain in the butt for everyone around him. He didn't get to ask for more. He didn't get to accept an outstretched hand through anything weaker than complete insistence. Ugh, Harvey, you're working so hard! Don't say that about yourself, Harvey! You already know you're not getting out of it, Jill replied. I know, he replied. I wish I knew what I was doing in any meaningful way. Even if it was just to make things easier for you. He stared through the windshield as people meandered along the sidewalk. It was too early for a drink. The bar wasn't even open, yet some traitorous part of his mind that he thought he'd killed off after rehab whispered that this conversation wouldn't feel so difficult if he had a drink in him. I really ruined it. Everything. Yeah, Jill said. Oh my gosh! Brutal! Jill is brutal! She's a brutal queen, dude. But, you know, kind of deserved. I'm not going to coddle you about it, but I'll remind you that you dug yourself out once before. Yeah, back when I was the only one in the hole, he replied. I dragged that kid into it with me the second I started poking around in places I had no business being. Harv, Jill said. Oh, dude, whenever she hits you with, like, the first name, that's the first thing she says, I have a feeling that, it's gonna be bad. I'm not going to BS you. You've done some dumb crap lately, and it's not okay. Still, you need to remember that what you're doing right now has no bearing on whether or not Harper ends up somewhere good for her. You've already been rejected. She's not going with you, and you know, maybe it's a good thing and maybe it isn't. I don't know, but nothing you can do right now is going to hurt anyone except yourself. So what are you gonna do about it? Harvey drummed his fingers near the car window. He sighed. I guess I'm gonna go get my car, he muttered, though to his ear the response sounded exhausted and half-hearted. Yeah, you are, she said. Now get out and get over there so we can go home and unpack your BS. Okay, end of chapter. Wow, okay. So, the problemo here is that this is chapter 21 of 25, it says on here. So, like, I'm really concerned about how Harvey's gonna dig himself out of this one before the, like, you know, in, like, the finale. We're in the third act here. We're in the passing stage. We gotta figure out a bunch of stuff, and I'm kind of really, I'm really excited. I have a lot of theories, and, I'm really curious about Cotton. I hope we see him again, because he's just so delightfully evil. I really love him. It's kind of hard not to imagine him as the king of the hill, like, I don't want to do an impression of his voice, because his voice is hard. But, yeah, it's really hard not to, like, I just want to see more of him. And I feel like we are going to see more of him. And his influence and, like, the whole who sold me line, you know, because he's so freaking riddly. He's the freaking Riddler. Or at least he thinks he is. He thinks he's so smart. He's not, okay? He's just a dummy who wants to torture people. But, yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm so excited. I really do honestly think John's going to be the villain. I do. I really do. I think he's going to be one of Cotton. I think he might... Oh, my gosh, guys. What if he's the one who sold Cotton? I really like this series. Okay, bye.